A teenage girl leans out of a moving car window, gasping for air. Her brother swerves. In one silent instant, she is gone. But the terrifying part isn't how she dies. It's that the moment her head leaves her body, someone, somewhere, has been waiting for exactly that. This is the full story of Hereditary. Annie Graham builds miniature worlds for a living. Tiny rooms. Tiny tragedies. Tiny moments of real life reconstructed at a scale she can control. She lives in northern Utah with her husband Steve, their 16-year-old son Peter, and 13-year-old daughter Charlie. The family is gathered for the funeral of Annie's mother, Ellen. A woman Annie describes as private, demanding, and deeply difficult. Something at the funeral is immediately wrong. The crowd is too large, too attentive, too genuinely grieving for a woman Annie barely knew how to love. She scans the faces of strangers who appear to have known Ellen far better than her own daughter did. Charlie is the one most visibly undone by the funeral. She sits through the service drawing strange images and making a soft clucking sound in her throat. She asks Annie who will take care of her now that Ellen is gone. She's 13. Her mother is healthy. The question makes no sense, unless Charlie already knows something. Before the week is out, Charlie will find a dead bird at school, remove its head with a pair of scissors, and pocket it. Steve receives a call from the cemetery. Ellen's grave has been desecrated. Someone disturbed her burial site after she was interred. He decides not to tell Annie. He believes he's protecting her. Peter wants to go to a party. Annie agrees, but only if Charlie goes with him. At the party, Peter leaves his sister alone. She finds chocolate cake on a table and eats it without thinking. Her nut allergy triggers within minutes. She can't breathe. Peter carries her to the car and drives hard toward the hospital. Charlie leans out the passenger window to get air. Peter swerves to avoid something in the road. The sound arrives before the image. A single impact. Then silence. Peter pulls over on the empty road. He sits behind the wheel and stares at nothing. He doesn't look back. He drives home. He goes to bed. Annie finds Charlie the next morning. In the weeks that follow, Peter becomes reclusive, paranoid, and increasingly passive. He doesn't fight. He doesn't flee. He waits. Peter isn't grieving like someone who lost his sister. He's behaving like someone who knows, on some wordless level, that something is coming for him next, and has already accepted that he cannot stop it. The family buries Charlie and fractures completely. Annie turns her grief into something precise and pointed. She builds a miniature diorama of the road where Charlie died, the car, the pole, the exact position of everything, reconstructing the worst moment of her life at a scale she can hold in her hands. Steve finds her working on it and has no language for what he's seeing. At dinner, Annie says aloud that Charlie's death is Peter's fault. Peter quietly reminds her that Annie was the one who made Charlie go. Neither of them is wrong. The cruelty of the scene is exactly that. Annie returns to a grief support group. In the parking lot afterward, she meets a woman named Joan, another member, warm and attentive, who lost her own daughter and grandson. Joan appears at exactly the right moment, offering exactly the right kind of understanding. Joan introduces Annie to a séance. She claims she has communicated with her dead grandson. She demonstrates what appears to be real supernatural contact. Objects moving. A name appearing on a chalkboard. Annie watches, skeptical and desperate in equal measure. Joan teaches her how to replicate it at home. Personal item from the deceased. A specific incantation. And one condition. Every member of the family must be inside the house during the summoning. That condition is unusual. Annie doesn't question it. Annie performs the ritual. Something responds. Objects shift. Annie speaks in a voice that isn't hers. Something uses her body like an instrument, and Peter watches his mother become someone else at the kitchen table. Steve throws water on her. It stops. But whatever entered the house does not leave. Peter's haunting accelerates. He hears Charlie's clucking sound in empty rooms. His reflection occasionally holds a different expression. He wakes to find Annie hovering over his bed in a sleepwalking trance, and in that trance, Annie confesses that she never wanted Peter, that she tried to prevent his birth. She wakes and recoils from what she said. But the room has already heard it. Annie discovers that Charlie's sketchbook has been changing on its own. New drawings, all of them centered on Peter. The images feel less like art and more like targeting. She throws the book into the fireplace. Her arm ignites simultaneously. She tears the book from the flames. The fire on her arm stops the instant the book is removed. Annie goes back through her mother's belongings. The photographs identify Ellen as Queen Lee, the leader of a coven. Joan appears repeatedly at her side. Another book describes Paimon, a demon king who grants wealth and knowledge, but who requires a male host. And then Annie goes into the attic. Ellen's headless corpse is there, rotting, surrounded by blood-drawn occultist runes on the walls. Charlie once said Ellen always wished she'd been a boy. The statement was filed away as a strange thing a child said about her grandmother. At school, Joan appears across the fence from Peter. She shouts something across the distance while performing what appears to be a ritual gesture. In class, Peter hears Charlie's sound, and then something enters him. He slams his face into the desk hard enough to shatter cartilage. Students freeze. Peter comes back to himself screaming. The possession is no longer occasional. It is operational. At this point, Peter isn't fighting a haunting. He is the target of a plan that has been running for decades. Annie goes to Steve with everything. The photographs, the book, the coven's connection to Joan, the link between the sketchbook and the haunting, the evidence of Paimon. She is clear. She is specific. She tells him that burning the sketchbook may be the only way to stop what is targeting Peter. Steve looks at his wife, who has a documented family history of mental illness, who has been sleepwalking, who built a diorama of her daughter's death, who is now claiming her dead mother's headless body is in the attic, and he refuses. He accuses her of having dug up Ellen's grave herself. At first, this looks like the answer. Annie throws the sketchbook into the fire. She believes she will burn with it. Instead, Steve ignites. He is ash before he can move. Annie watches. Then something takes her, the same force that has been moving in and out of Peter, and Annie Graham leaves her own body. Peter wakes alone. The house is quiet in a way that isn't peaceful. He finds his father's charred remains on the living room floor. He notices strangers standing inside the house, members of the coven, watching him without moving. Then Annie comes. She is not walking. She is moving through the ceiling above him, tracking him through the house from above, her body at an angle that bodies do not hold. Peter runs for the attic. He pulls the ladder up behind him. Below, Annie pounds her head against the attic door. Once, twice. The sound is rhythmic and wrong and does not stop. In the attic Peter finds candles. He finds flies. He finds a photograph of his own face with the eyes punched out. Ellen's body is gone. The runes remain. Then Annie rises through the attic floor. She has piano wire. She uses it on herself, deliberate, methodical, as though completing a step in a process she was always going to complete. Peter throws himself out the attic window. His body hits the ground. He should be dead. The light appears. It hovers over him. It enters him. And Peter rises, wearing Peter's face, standing in Peter's body, looking out through eyes that are no longer Peter's. He follows Annie's floating corpse to the treehouse. Inside, the coven is assembled. Charlie's severed head, crowned, placed atop a shrine. The headless bodies of Annie and Ellen prostrated on the floor before it. Joan's voice addresses him as Charlie. A woman removes the crown from the statue and places it on Peter's head. Then Joan calls him Paimon. She explains what was done and why. Ellen devoted her life to giving Paimon a male vessel. Charlie was born female, the wrong container. The coven used everything, Charlie's death, Annie's grief, the séance, the ritual conditions, the possession, to transfer Paimon out of the female body he had been confined to and into Peter. They corrected, Joan says, the error of the original birth. The coven hails him. Peter, who is now Paimon, looks out at them with an expression that has never appeared on Peter's face before. 3 questions this film refuses to answer. Was Charlie a genuine person, a child with her own consciousness, or was Paimon present in her body from birth? Ellen attempted to take Peter as an infant and Annie stopped her. Did that early failure change the coven's plan? Was Charlie's birth, and death, a direct consequence of Annie's resistance years earlier? The film ends on Annie's miniature. Was the entire story, every tragedy, every choice, every loss, always contained inside one of Annie's dioramas? And if so, who built it? What do you think really happened? Drop your theory in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Thrilled in the Dark.